Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready for the event.
BBC World News, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Okay. Hello, sir. Can you hear us? This is BBC World News.
Luca Parmitano. Hi, it's Ros Atkins at the BBC. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Fantastic. That's very exciting. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. How long have you got left on the ISS?
First of all, welcome on board the space station and inside the Columbus European module. I've been here for about 4 months and I have 7 weeks left.
Well, we appreciate your time. We're going to start recording the interview now, if it's okay. Could you start by showing us around the room that you're in at the moment? Could you explain what's around you?
Yes, with pleasure. So right now here we are in the Columbus module. Columbus is the European lab, which is the European contribution, the European Space Agency contribution to the International Space Station. We are at the very front of the space station. This is the direction of flight, to my right, and it's called forward. This is aft. And what you see around me, we call this the deck, and this is the overhead. And around me are racks. The racks are labs in itself. So to my right, there is a European drawer rack. This one is basically a modular rack where you can install different kind of experiments, and the rack will provide energy and data to them. To my left, a similar concept. This is an American rack called the Express. This is the biolab. It is the European lab for biology experiments. And then behind me, other different kind of racks, also for experiments. This one is working right now is for fluid physics. And also behind me, 2 racks for human physiology experiments.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the tour. Let me ask you about what happened with that spacewalk a few weeks ago, because lots of our viewers were very concerned about you. Tell us the moment that you realized that there was a problem.
Sorry, no, every spacewalk is an adventure, and mine ended up being especially adventurous. And what happened is that I was outside. I'd been outside for about 40 minutes doing one of the tasks, and I was about to complete my second task when I felt some cold water in the back of my head. Now, since I don't have any hair, that cold sensation was very strong, and I realized that something didn't feel right. I contacted ground, telling them that I felt this water, I felt cold water behind my head, and I didn't think it was either sweat. I didn't think it came from my DIDB bag, which is the bag that we use right in front to drink water during an EVA. At that moment, my colleague, Chris Cassidy, was outside with me. He finished his task and came towards me to check my helmet, and he noticed the water crawling towards the front of my visor. It started covering my eyebrows and my ears, and that's when ground very promptly called terminate, which means we stop where we are, and we go back inside and repress the airlock. So I did that. I started moving towards the airlock. In the meantime, the water kept crawling to the front of the helmet. The problem in 0G is that the water just creates a glob and doesn't flow. So it just kept accumulating until it completely covered my ears and my eyes, and then finally even my nose. So I was only left with my mouth to breathe, which luckily the water never reached my mouth. I was always able to breathe through my mouth. I just couldn't hear or couldn't see anything. But thanks to the training and thanks to the support from the ground, all the engineers and the ground support people that helped me. They guided me back. They got me back inside the airlock, pressurized very quickly the airlock. The crew on board, Karen Nyberg, she had the controls for the repressurization. She did an excellent job keeping us updated on the state of the repressurization. And in a few minutes, really, the emergency was solved. Now, for me, those were very long minutes, but I was always confident the whole time that Chris was there to help me, and that the ground was there to help me, and the crew on board was always there to help me.
Well, Luca, thank goodness you're okay. It sounds absolutely terrifying. You sound far calmer when you talk about it than I think most of us would have felt. Now, we've been telling the people who follow us on Facebook that you were speaking to us here on Global, and they've been leaving lots of questions for you. I wonder if I could ask you a couple. Thomas would like to ask you, how far do you go from the ISS when you go on a spacewalk? What's the furthest you can go?
So when we go outside, we never leave contact with the space station. We're always in contact with the structure. So we come out of the airlock, and we have cables. They're called safety tethers. They're kind of like the ones that you use with little dogs to let them move around and then get back. You can get them long, and they're 85 feet long. And so technically, we could only go about 185 feet away from the airlock, which is where we position ourselves. However, we have tricks that we do in order to go farther away, which is all the way, if we want, all the way to the end of the truss, which is about 100 meters wide. And in order to do that, anchor different safety tethers, we call them packs, so that we always have a way back. They always safely attach the station, and we can go all the way to the end of the truss, all the way to the front of the station, coming out of the airlock. In my first TVA, I was all the way to the front, to the very tip of the space station, installing a cover, for example.
Thank you very much for answering that question. I must ask you, can you give us a demonstration of zero gravity? I'm sure lots of our viewers would like to see how it works.
So I have here things that most people find important, and it's a food and a drink. So this is a special food that I will eat next week for an experiment. And the demonstration on zero-G is that food is very light on the space station. It's actually so light that it floats, and the same for fluids. So this is some orange juice that I rehydrated, and I better get it before it goes all the way to the top. So that's one of the things that we can do in zero-G.
You've been practicing that, Luca. That's very impressive. Fantastic. Well, that leads me on to the next question from our Facebook page. We've a viewer in Ghana who... A viewer in Ghana would like to ask you, what's your favorite food on the ISS?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, the food on the space station is really good. We have all different kinds of food, some provided by the Russians, some provided by the Europeans, others provided by the Americans, and we all share this food. But if I have to add my say, I had some bonus food that was created by ESA and the Italian Space Agency for me, and it was Italian food. And I say it was because we finished it all basically as soon as we found it on the station. We had one big Italian dinner, and I made lasagna, risotto, and all kinds of different specialties, and it was delicious, and everybody was really, really happy.
It's not the same, though, as when you're back in Italy, I'm sure. I have to tell you, the single question that people are asking the most for you is, can you give an example of the most important discovery that's been made on the International Space Station? How do you justify all the money that's spent?
That's a very important question. I would like to go on and say that actually the money that we spend on the station is not that much. Really, if you put things in perspective, a European citizen spends about 10 euros in a year for the space program, which is all the space program, not just the space station and human space flight. But I'll tell you why the money is well spent. On the space station, we do three things that are very important. One is, of course, the science, and science speaks for itself. It's what makes us different from all the other animals. It's knowledge. We do at least 30 hours of science a week here on the space station, which generates an incredible amount of more science on the ground. We do technology where we test and create new technology that then is used on the ground. Then we do exploration. What I mean is that in the future, thanks to what we are learning today, we will be able to go further away. But to give you an example of something that we are doing now that is of immediate effect on the ground, we are doing a study on how our spine changes when we are in 0G. To do this science, we are using a new software for an ultrasound machine, a very small ultrasound machine to make diagnosis on our spine. On the ground, the same technology can be used to do diagnosis on the spine in areas that are not easily reachable by big machines like MRIs or TAC scan machines. And those machines are huge and expensive, and if you want to go in a remote area and do diagnosis, an ultrasound machine is cheap and inexpensive and very portable. Another one that we're doing, another experiment that we're running, studies osteoporosis. Here in orbit, an astronaut loses bone mass. But we are studying a diet that balances potassium and proteins to figure out what's the best combination to minimize the loss of calcium from the bones. But imagine if all the millions of people that suffer from osteoporosis could benefit from just a diet rather than cures or medicines, just to improve their health. I think these studies are of immediate impact and are just a fraction of what we do on the station.
Luca, we really do appreciate your time. I wonder if you could do me a favor. Would you be able to say hello to all of our viewers who use the BBC World News Facebook page to say thank you to them?
Absolutely. I would like to shout out to all the followers on Facebook of the BBC World News. I'm Luca Parmitano from the International Space Station, and please continue following the news, continue following us.
Goodbye, Luca. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Great talking to you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, BBC World News Station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.
Copy.